Welcome to RECO12. I'm Justin, your host and a grateful child of an all-powerful, all-loving God. RECO12 is all about exploring the common threads of addiction and sharing tools and hope from those on a similar path. We gather from diverse backgrounds, faiths, and places to learn and support one another. Our speakers represent various fellowships, addictions, and afflictions, reflecting the richness of our shared experiences. Come join us in this journey of recovery and unity. Today's speaker for the 219th meeting is Beth E., who is a first-time RECO12 speaker, and I'm excited to hear her share on the topic of the necessity of being rid of selfishness. We'll get to her talk and the Q&A afterwards here in just a minute. But first, for some business. RECO12 has several recovery resources in our family of podcasts and social media communities. To learn more, listen more, connect more, or just hang out and learn and grow with us, you can check out the other podcast, Noodle It Out with Nikki M., which releases every Tuesday, the Big Book Roundtable, which releases every Thursday, and RECO12 Shares, which releases each time we get enough recorded shares to release it. So if you'd like to join in on the RECO12 Shares and record a share, I'll put links in the chat and in the show notes as to how you can do that, and we'll get those released as often as they happen. To learn more about each of these podcasts, check out the chat and show notes, or go to RECO12.com. That's RECO12.com to join in our communities and check out the chat and show notes. RECO12 is self-supporting, and your contributions help us continue our mission. Thank you all who have donated recently and in the past. A special thanks goes out this week to Josephine and Jean for your kind and generous support as monthly spearheads. If you also would like to support RECO12 and become a spearhead, whether a monthly donor or a one-time donor, please go to RECO12.com/support for a one-time or monthly donation options. Your support does make a difference in sharing our message of recovery. I'll put those links in the chat as well as in the show notes of the podcast. We look forward each meeting to receiving from the light reflected from our speakers. That light inspires hope, meaning, worth, and growth in us, the listening audience. Now I'm going to go ahead and introduce our guest speaker for today, Beth E. Here's a little bit about Beth. Quote, I should, they should, the world should. This is how Beth started her email to me. She says she can live life shoulding all over the place where she starts objecting to reality. And guess what? Reality only wins 100% of the time. Blaming others for the way she feels, playing the victim, complaining, diving into self-pity, or using anger to manipulate people to act right can easily be her emotional immaturity level. Attending AA, having a sponsor, taking the 12 steps, and continuing to seek and improve conscious contact with God helps her grow up and stay out of selfishness by taking responsibility for herself with God's help. Take it away, Beth. The floor is yours.
Thanks, Justin, and thanks for having me. My name is Beth. I'm an alcoholic. My sobriety date is August 1st of 2017. That was the day that the loving God that I didn't want, didn't think that I needed, separated me from alcohol. You know, our big book talks about alcohol in the first step, and then it doesn't talk about alcohol for the rest of the book. It tells me that my problem is really me. So on page 62, that line that I chose, the top of the paragraph, it says, and I'm going to read it in first person. So my troubles, I think, are basically of my own making. They arise out of myself. And I'm an extreme example of self-will run riot, though I usually don't think so. Above everything, I, the alcoholic, must be rid of selfishness. I must, or it kills me. God makes that possible. See, I always thought that Beth made that possible. And wasn't that a lot of like my drinking? Beth is going to make this possible. She's going to quit drinking. She's not going to have problems anymore. She just wants to drink without consequences. She's not going to do that again. She had a horrible night where she woke up to incomprehensible demoralization the next day. You know what? I have the power. I'm just not going to do that again. And then I come into Alcoholics Anonymous and I find out that I have an allergy, a phenomenon of craving that once I put it into my body, there is no shutoff valve. Fine, I get that. I can't stop drinking. But better yet, it says that in Dr. Silkworth's doctor's opinion, it says, well, abstinence answers that. But I can't seem to stay abstinent. I have a mental obsession, thoughts that hijack my mind without my permission, that tell me it's a good idea, that this time I'm going to be able to control and enjoy my drinking. So I finally surrendered to that. But when you tell me I'm insane, I don't really believe it. When you bring up the God idea, I want nothing to do with that. But then the book tells me you're quite normal and like more than half of us. We all balked at that. But then I get into the root of my troubles. Oh boy, oh boy. I had no idea what selfish self-centeredness was. I thought I'm such an amazing person because the bondage of self, AKA ego, tells me that I'm amazing and wonderful, and you should think that about me too. And when you don't think that about me, and when my prism of defects runs what you're saying to me through this prism of defects that I have, where I feel not enough, not respected, not lovable. See, when I feel that way, the old ideas and beliefs that I'm not enough, not lovable, not respected, when I feel that way and I'm not uncovering, discovering, and discarding those old ideas and beliefs continually, see, I will react because a defective character for me is really who I think I am. So if I think I'm not enough, if I think I'm not respected, if I think I'm not loved, I am going to unleash those defects of characters. And what I call a defective character, I really call where I default to. So I default to those old ideas and beliefs where I believe these things about me. And then I have to become something else or try to manipulate you to get what I want so that I feel okay about me. So a lot of the selfish self-centeredness that I'm talking about in Alcoholics Anonymous, for me, appears in ways that I didn't really understand. Because the truth is I am a good daughter. But you know what? I might use anger with my mom to manipulate her to get her to treat me right. See, especially with family, it hits close to the bone. So I default to those old ideas and beliefs that I'm not a good daughter. And so then I have to use anger to manipulate you. But see, anger feels like power to me. Anger is real. I'm really using anger because I'm afraid of something. But I never want to look at what I'm afraid of because it's just much easier to get angry because anger feels like power. Lack of power is my dilemma, but I want power. And so that's a lot of how my selfish self-centeredness comes out. Our book says a solid self-appraisal is not enough, that I need to do a fourth and a fifth step to actually look at these things. And so I begin to see that I take a lot of things personally, which is my selfish self-centeredness. It's like if Justin says to me, hey, Beth, I hate your green hair. I'm like, haha, Justin, I don't have green hair. But if Justin says, you know what, I saw you in a meeting once, a couple months ago. I heard you before, Beth. You've really put on weight since I've seen you. Because I have old ideas and beliefs around body image, my claws are going to come out on Justin because I believe certain things about me. So what I'm doing in Alcoholics Anonymous is I'm uncovering these old ideas and beliefs. The result was nil until we let go absolutely. These old ideas and beliefs cause a lot of the selfish self-centeredness. Now, for a little while, I thought I know my defaults. I'm just going to act my way in a right living and think toxic positivity. I know what I need to do. But I always thought I needed to know what I did to stop drinking too. It didn't work for long. And so it says here that I must be rid of selfishness and that God makes that possible, not Beth. And so I've tried to fix me, but as we've heard in Alcoholics Anonymous, the same mind that created the problem cannot fix it. I cannot use a sick mind to fix a sick mind. So we often hear newcomers come into the room saying, I'm not enough. It's like, you're right, you're not, because you need a God of your understanding. In the 12 and 12, it says, if God struck me white as snow in our seventh step, right? I wish God would strike me white as snow and I could just walk around letting things roll right off my back all the time. But that's not what happens in Alcoholics Anonymous. We are not saints. I get in touch and I get awareness of these things that I default to, the humanness that resides in me, that God's not going to take away all of them and rid me of all this selfishness. That 6 and 7 are more of an in this moment type of thing where I become aware that I'm disturbed. I have to find it objectionable, it says in step 6. And in step 7, I have the humility to go to God in that moment. God, I'm going to ask you for a new perspective. See, the selfish self-centeredness, the way it appears to me is I end up getting blindsided by these character defects. They feel like an ambush. I'm walking the dog last year. The dog poops. I go pick it up with a poop bag. My finger goes through the poop bag. I've now got dog poop on my finger, and I'm pretty upset. I just want to get home. I never throw it in somebody else's garbage can because you know what? When it sticks to the bottom of my garbage can, I know that that's what happens in the summertime. So, I'm a good neighbor and I don't do that to other people. But on this day, I did because I'm upset. And so I toss it in a garbage can, and a woman gets out of her car and she's on the phone with someone and proceeds to tell me off. And I feel that emotional rise cropping up through my esophagus where I'm about to react because I've never had relationships with people. I've only ever had reactionships. See, I've been shooting all over the place. I should, they should, the world should. See, it's in that moment. She should know what just happened to me. So now I want to give her a running stream of my thoughts of, don't you know what just happened to me? I've got dog poop on my finger, and how dare you yell at me? Because you see, I'm a victim and I'm a pessimist, and that's where I default to. Doesn't make me bad, but makes me human. Thank God I have a program. Because in that moment, I feel that reaction coming up, and I call the ego's trilogy of selfishness a triangle. On one side is fear, on the other side is anger, and on the other side is guilt. See, I want to have a built-in pause button, as our book says. Pause when agitated or disturbed. I know today that whenever I'm in fear, anger, or guilt, nothing good is going to come out of my mouth. My little snow globe of emotions is all stirred up. And so if I react, it's not going to be good because I'm going to react from fear, anger, or guilt on this woman. And whenever I react from fear, anger, or guilt, what I do is I create more fear, anger, and guilt in me. And then I'm in the midst of total selfishness because I'm spinning at my own perverse universe, telling myself a scary story, and it's all about me. So I have that pause button because I feel disturbed and I know my troubles are of my own making. I want to learn how to respond, not react. I want to learn that deep down inside every man, woman, and child is the fundamental idea of God. What are those fundamental ideas? What is the truth about me? Because I also walked around calling myself, I'm so selfish and self-centered when I got a couple years sober. That is not the truth about me. Who I am because of whose I am, this God, this soul, whatever you want to call it. When I'm connected to that, the truth about who I am are the glorious words in our St. Francis prayer. I am love, understanding, hope. But I've got a mind that continually disconnects me from that. So in that moment that I'm disturbed with that woman and she's telling me off and she's telling her friend how she's telling me off, I feel the ego wanting to react. And it's really uncomfortable. But I've learned I have to learn how to be uncomfortable in the program and that it's not going to kill me, but the ego says it will. The ego will pay any price and consequences to react right now and get relief. And what I'm learning to do is let the ego do its worst to me. To feel that discomfort for 3 months, 3 minutes, zipping it and saying nothing. Let it do its worst to me. And so it's in that moment that I can have an intuitive thought, or in that moment I can find it objectionable, because believe me, my thoughts were, when she's yelling at me for putting it at the bottom of, throwing in somebody's trash can, my first thought is, well, are you a garbage man? No, don't say that, Beth. That's not going to be good. I still have those thoughts. It doesn't make me bad. It makes me human, but that's not how I want to react. I want to be able to respond with love. My sponsor dumbs it down to me real simple. There's two feelings. I'm either reacting from fear or I'm reacting from love. Which one is it? It's really easy for me to figure it out when I dumb it down and make it that simple. And ask myself, if I didn't have this fear or this anger right now, what would God have me be? So I have an intuitive thought in that moment. And I asked the woman if she wants me to go get it out of the garbage can. She says, no, it's not her, not even her garbage can. The mind starts talking. It was like, well, how dare she? It's not even her can. And she's screaming at me. Nope, don't say anything, Beth. She didn't want me to go get it. I said, have a nice day. A few months later, I'm walking by her house and it's a real windy day and all her trash cans are blown all over the road. White claws everywhere. See, I don't know what God has planned in these moments where I don't react, where I show up responding with spiritual principles than rather running my mouth. Principles before birth personality. She can walk into our local AA meeting, which is right in between our two houses, and I don't have to look the other way because I demonstrated principles before what I wanted to do. Because believe me, the head still tells me 3 days later I'll key her car for, how dare you, right? Because I'm always a victim to someone else's behavior. But the truth is I'm never a victim to someone else's behavior. I'm a victim of my thoughts, opinions, and preferences about their behavior. If I never had a thought, opinion, or preference, I wouldn't be judging. I wouldn't be a victim, right? Acceptance is the answer, right? Well, if I never had a thought, opinion, judgment, or preference, I would have complete acceptance. But the alcoholic mind is the self-talking mind, judgmental, critical, blameful, plays the victim. I got robbed at gunpoint when I was in college and made it on my inventory. Really scary, traumatic situation that I was carrying forward with me. I blame that man for robbing me. How dare he? He chose me. I'm going to get to a place of forgiveness or acceptance of it until I write inventory and I get real clear that it wasn't personal. He did what he did because of who he is. Nothing to do with me. Absolutely nothing to do with me. But yes, he chose me. Yes, I was the one that was robbed at gunpoint. Yes, I was mugged and had the crap eaten out of me. But see, it has nothing to do with him, what's going on in me. And I get down underneath that the reason why I'm upset is because the old idea and belief, the underneath, I value my life, has nothing to do with him. The reason why I'm angry and upset is because I valued my life. And that's why I can't get forgiveness. That's why I sit in self-pity and can't let that go. The old ideas and beliefs underneath, the result was nil until we let go. Absolutely. He did what he did because of who he is. It has nothing to do with me. I'm upset because I value my life. Our book tells ourselves that we can't fool ourselves to values. I never had values. You were cute, made me laugh, had a job, relationship. 6 months down the road, I thought I was Beth the Builder and I'm going to change you because I can't stand you because I'm shooting all over the place of I should, they should, he should. And so our third step says on page 61 or page 61, it says, I'm trying to arrange the lights, the show, and the ballet and the scenery in my own way. If my arrangements would only stay put, if only people would do as I wish, the show would be great. Everybody, including myself, would be pleased. Don't you know who I am? I'm in the fast lane. I got some place to go. You're going the speed limit. How dare you? Because that's how Beth shows up to life without God. That's the selfish self-centeredness that I'm talking about. Or me sitting on my couch in my self-pity, having a good think about woulda, coulda, shoulda said to you. All of that stuff gives the ego's perverse payoff of me staying at the center of my own universe. I can have a good think, and I'm disconnected from the present moment. So the selfish self-centeredness isn't that I'm a brat of a daughter or that I'm a jerk to work with at work. It's me thinking about me, and nobody thinks about me as much as I think about me. And so I've discovered in Alcoholics Anonymous at my little 6 years sober that I have a really mean voice that talks to me in my own head. And then I'll self-abandon the truth about what I want to abide by. I'll give you a couple examples. I have a tree that's leaning in my backyard, and it's if it falls down, it's going to fall in my neighbor's yard. But I've got 2 little dogs, so I'm going to get that tree taken down. And she's got 2 little dogs too. But it's about $4,000 to get that tree cut down. And so I hire some tree people and I communicate with her, and we agree on a plan that she's going to be well communicated with. She can put her 2 little dogs away, and we're going to do it in the winters because she's got a big pool. She doesn't want the oil dripping in her pool. Right. And I don't realize unconsciously I'm so great because I'm paying the $4,000. If it falls in New Jersey on her side, she's responsible for it. So the tree guys come over and they're going to disconnect her fence temporarily to cut down that tree. She throws a fit that I don't know about. They're in my backyard for maybe 20 minutes, and all of a sudden I hear knock, knock, knock on the front door. And they're all on my front porch, equipment moved out, and they're about to tell me what happened. And as they're about to tell me what happened, she pulls like a bat out of hell into my driveway, comes flying up my stairs next to the tree guys, screaming and yelling about what they're taking down her fence. And I just went, I felt my little snow globe of emotions getting all stirred up. And I went, nothing good's going to come out of my mouth. I said, Deborah, I'm not able to talk right now. Guys, Thank you so much for coming out. I totally understand that you can't do the job right now. Deborah, I'll be back in touch with you. Well, she blows up my phone for the rest of the afternoon because she didn't get what she wanted out of me. She, like me, they said, perhaps are spiritually sick. I know I've got to show up with principles, and I can't do that when I'm all emotionally stirred up. And as she's sending more texts, I'm going, yeah, no. Still, my snow globe's all stirred up. See, when she shows up like that, kicking and screaming and yelling, I feel like that powerless little girl again because I don't like irrational energy. I grew up in a house with an alcoholic dad and a mom with mental untreated illness. None of that has anything to do with why I'm an alcoholic, but I realize where I default to. See, when somebody else is displeased with me, I make it all about me. And I have two choices. I either want to make it right so that they're completely happy with me, or ego wants to react because ego comes from a place of lack and attack. Ego tells me that I'm a nobody and I got to prove that I'm a somebody. I was doing a nice freaking job for you getting that tree cut down, and how dare you? And makes myself into a victim again. So I'm watching for how ego makes it that there's something wrong with me, that she's unhappy with me. And that something wrong with me is going to go two places. I'm going to deny that, and I'm going to react with anger to manipulate you to get you to treat me right because how dare you? Or I'm going to go into what we call the approval addiction junkie, the self-seeking our book talks about. I may be kind, I may be generous to try to get you to lay off me. And what I've learned in Alcoholics Anonymous is that where I trip is where my treasure is. And thank God for these experiences. So it was in that moment that I realized I can't say anything. I get real clear. She sends all those text messages. I still have time out. And I get real clear on what the truth is. And I end up a couple hours later sending her a text message after all her crazy that I had to go, nope, no response needed for that. I said, Deborah, I just want to let you know, if that tree falls down, it's going to do a lot more damage than just to your fence, period. End of story. No rationalization, justification, no big, long story. See, the truth never needs to be defended. My sponsor says to me, if you are rationalizing or defending or justifying, your truth is good enough and you're lying to yourself then. And so what I said to her was those words. You know, the next day she shows up on my porch with a poinsettia apologizing because her snow globe came down and settled. And that's the gift that I get in Alcoholics Anonymous, is that I'm not having reaction chips. I'm not unleashing the selfish self-centeredness, but I can't always do that on my own. It's in those moments that I find these things objectionable that I need to go to God and ask, in this moment, God, I need a new perspective. I made a mistake at work. I got a new job. You know, I live by this. I should be perfect at new jobs and I should know everything. And I live under these illusions and delusions that, you know, I shouldn't be fearful, squirming, afraid. I should know everything, which is not living in reality. Because I object to reality. I want reality to be so that I feel okay all the time. And the truth is, in Alcoholics Anonymous and any 12-step program, I'm not going to feel okay and comfortable. And I'm learning in the program how to feel uncomfortable, knowing it won't kill me, that there is a beginning, middle, and an end to everything. Everything. But sometimes that middle is longer than a lot of other things. And so I have to believe that it's like being in a plane where God is flying and that I'm going through turbulence. And I got to believe that God is flying the plane through the turbulence and that God can lift me above the turbulence to the still calm air. So where I get glimpses of peace. Now I say islands of peace because sometimes I go for a swim. I just don't go for a swim as often as long as I used to. But I get glimpses of peace amongst the uncomfortability. That is the gift that I'm given in Alcoholics Anonymous when I continue to seek and improve conscious contact and stay out of the self-centeredness that I can't fix. God makes that possible. God doesn't promise me that he's going to land the plane without going back down through that turbulence. That's not living in reality. I cannot compare my life to the Hallmark card. That's fantasy thinking. Life is life. There's going to be a lot of hard choices in life. There's always, I end up in these situations where both ends of the road suck. No matter which decision I take, they both suck. I got married and my mom, if I invite my mom to the wedding, my mom that's got the mental illness, she's going to bring drama because you see, my dad left her after 30 years of marriage to a deaf woman that he's now married to. If I invite my mom to the wedding, there's going to be drama. If I don't invite my mom to the wedding, she's going to be hurt. So I make the decision, talk it through with my sponsor, and I decide that the best way is to invite my mom to the wedding. I'm going to stay out of the selfish self-centeredness. right? I'm going to allow God to be God and make the plan, and I'm not going to future trip that. And I'm going to stay in today. I'm going to take the right actions today. I invite my mom to the wedding. My mom hears things through a prism of defects because the family is to some extent ill. She's also got her own issues. And what she hears is that I don't want her out of my wedding, curses me out, calls me evil, and a whole bunch of words that I won't repeat. My mom does not show up at my wedding. My stepmother, the deaf lady, is supposed to take pictures at my wedding. A month before my wedding, her retina detaches in her eye. It's May, it's prom season, and I call every photographer in the state of New Jersey, and I cannot get a photographer. Where I trip is where my treasure is. I am learning to live in the fourth dimension in the world of the spirit where I am not attached to things of this world, how you treat me. I need to go to God with how you treat me. I am lovable, ... my 7-step prayer, even if so-and-so is displeased with me, even if my mother doesn't show up at the rock. I have to improve my conscious contact with a lovable God who tells me who I am. Because if I go to the thinking mind, it's selfish, self-centeredness, and it tells me I'm the worst of the worst. My mom didn't show up at my wedding. I don't have a photographer. I leave the wedding, which she ended up being able to take pictures. I leave my wedding for a 15-minute drive to have a beautiful oceanic dinner at a restaurant in Long Branch, New Jersey. And a 15-minute drive ends up being an hour and a half. And I'm calling the restaurant, asking them to hold my dinner, please. We get to that town and there's no parking within 2 miles. I find out the day after that an Instagram influencer had gone on Instagram and told everybody to go to the beach there. It's in that moment that I have to realize where I want to default to so that I can be present and connect to a God of my understanding, even if, God, I'm not getting my way, even if, help me have a new perspective in this moment and in the next moment, God, which may be 30 seconds later, 1.5 seconds later, or 30 minutes later when I feel first squirmy, angry, and afraid. God, even if, help me have a new perspective in this moment. Long story short, I end up having dinner at the mall. No, I'm not talking food court. I'm talking a restaurant at the mall. But because I'm connected to a God and I'm continually seeking, I'm able to be present for my newfound husband, his family, not make it all about poor me. My mom didn't show up at my wedding. See, the greatest gift is that my mom didn't show up at my wedding because 6 months later, my mom showed up at my house, banging on my door one day, bringing me gifts like she always does, wanting to sweep it all underneath the carpet like it never even happened. I said to my mom, I said, you know what, Mom? I said, I feel like you might be a lot like me, where you have a really mean voice that talks to you in your own voice that you don't even recognize. And if you're like me, that mean voice tells me a lot of things about me and sees things differently than what I actually am, what I interpret things differently than what actually people are saying, because I have old ideas and beliefs. What my mom told me is that when she was 6 years old, she went downstairs and she told her parents that she had no reason to live and she wanted to kill herself. How sad, a 6-year-old. Her father said, tomorrow's a new day, and her mother said, go to bed. Well, now I know where my mom gets it from. Now I know. See, it took me almost 4.5 years of my sobriety to learn how to have compassion for my mom because my mom told me that story. So I don't have to sweep it under the carpet. I could speak my truth today. I could speak it lovingly and kindly because God makes that possible. At 5:30 in the morning, a couple months ago, I came off a plane from Wyoming and Montana, and my mom shows up at my door, banging on it, 5:30 a.m. Saturday morning. I'm deathly sick coming off the plane. In that moment, God, when I drag my husband out of bed, in this moment, God, I'm going to need your help because I don't want to have a reactionship on my mom. I want to be able to respond to my mom with love because right now I don't like this. So my mom comes in and she tells me a whole bunch of crazy stuff. I ask her if she needs mental help. She leaves like a bat out of hell. She blows up my phone for the whole day. I'm evil. I'm nasty. I'm this. And I have to find peace. And that doesn't mean that I always have to be Miss Spiritual Beth and the perfect daughter where I could put up with it all day. I think God asked me in the moment what I'm able to handle because I am never going to supersede my humanness. I blocked my mom for the day to get peace because I'm sick and I just got off a plane and I need rest. The next day I get a phone call from my uncle. My mom fell in her driveway. She shattered her arm in 5 places. And that mean voice starts talking to me and telling me I'm a bad daughter for blocking her the day before. That is not the truth. That is the selfish self-centeredness. That is the pride in reverse that our 12 and 12 talks about that tells me I am the worst of the worst. I'm able to show up for my mom today as a daughter. I showed up in that hospital. She ended up not being able to get the psychiatric care. She wanted to kill herself. I will never know if she purposely tried to kill herself and that's why she fell in the driveway. I don't know any of that stuff. I just know I have to keep showing up as God would have me be. Because you see, I don't love my mom as a daughter should. I love my mother as God would have me be. And that takes work and improving conscious contact with God in order to do that, because I have old ideas and beliefs about what a mom should be. My mom can no longer be my higher power. I've got to get right sized with who my higher power is in my family, at work, in the rooms, in my personal life, so that I stop giving other people more power and more power over my mind and my emotions than I have. And this is the selfish self-centeredness that I'm talking about for me, is that I'm running around giving everybody more power because I'm dependent on others to make me feel okay. Today, I want to have God esteem. I want to have God dependence rather than Beth dependence, rather than you dependence. The gift I get in Alcoholics Anonymous is realizing that I cannot fix me, is realizing my human nature, that I will always default to these defects of character and the selfish self-centeredness and make demands on you so that I can get right sized and go to God, the only one who's going to give me the truth about who I am. When we say the truth will set you free, the truth in the 12 and 12 and the 11th step, where it talks about truth and justice. Part of growing up in sobriety for me is realizing the truth about who I am. I'm not selfish and self-centered. I can behave that way, is what I say today. The truth about who I am is I am love, kindness, compassion, gentleness, patience, all those beautiful words that we read in the St. Francis prayer. That's what I'm trying to stay awake to so that I don't go back into the selfish self-centeredness. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much, Beth. Man, you had a lot of one-liners that I'm going to come back and touch on and dig a little bit deeper on. And your share was just powerful. Thank you so much for being willing to do that. We're now going to move into the Q&A portion of the meeting. Any of you out there in the live audience, if you have a question for Beth, please type it in the Q&A link there at the bottom of your Zoom window. It looks like two speech bubbles over the top of each other, and we'll get to those. I'm going to start off with a question that I love. You said, uh, I didn't know how to have relationships. I just had reactionships. I've never heard that phrase before, but it just rings so true to me. Talk to me a little bit more about reactionships versus relationships and how you are able to maintain those or grow those as they come along.
Yeah, so we're storytellers, I think, essentially, right? So I'll tell you a little story. My husband, right? I'm newly married, maybe a year and a half, and my husband and I agreed he was going to get a credit card and build his credit. And so the agreement, because we have a group conscience, we bring the traditions into our relationship. We want to make sure that we're unified, loving God as He may express Himself. We sit down, we decide he's going to make small payments and pay it off monthly. Well, I discover, because he's given me access to that credit card and put my name on it, that apparently we weren't on the same page. He went and spent up to $3,000, and I found out on my credit report, not from him, right? So I want to react to that. How dare you? We were in agreement. We were on the same page. We had a group conscious, right? When you're wrong, I want to tell you all about it. So the bedevilments on page 52 are really the barometer of how I show up. We're having trouble with personal relationships. I just want to get my point across. And don't you know how wrong you are? That's where the reaction shifts. Everything's all about me. And look what you did to me. Call my sponsor, get real clear. You know what the truth is maybe he's never had a credit card before. Maybe he made a legitimate mistake. Maybe the way I want to approach this subject is coming from a place of fear. It's not loving, compassionate, or kind. It's just all about, look what you did to me. And so I'm able with my sponsor to approach that from an entirely different angle, as our book says, to sit down and have a conversation. Listen, Jason, I got a credit report that says there's $3,000. I'm not sure that we're on the same page. Can we have a conversation about what occurred here? and try to figure out how we can get on the same page. That's a little bit more loving than me coming at him, right? Me coming at you is the way I do things. Now, a couple months later, apparently we weren't on the same page after that first conversation. Again, the hair goes on fire and I want to react because it's all about me. And how did you didn't hear me? We have the traditions in our relationship, it becomes all about me. And look what you did. My sponsor says to me, I can be a victim or I can be victorious, but I can't be both. I want to approach everything with love and compassion. Now, that doesn't mean that I get walked on, right? I could speak my truth, but I want to say it kindly. And I'm able to do that today versus having that emotional snowball just coming at you.
Yeah, and that I thank you for closing up there, or bringing this into, I don't have to be walked on. How do you, like in a situation like what you just shared here, where maybe that's been 3 or 4 times where it's like, hey, it looks like we're not on the same page. How do you then say, you know what, I feel like I'm being walked on, me. How do you deal with that though, without going to victim thinking or lashing out, reactionship thinking?
Yeah. So in this case, I had to stay really calm and wait for my little snow globe to calm down before I could actually have a conversation with him because nothing good's going to come out. And so we ended up having a conversation when I was calm and say, look, do you want to explain what happened or what you're thinking here? He admitted that he's powerless over money and, maybe we should look at those finances, but I was able to say to him, listen, first time it happens, fine. Second time it happens, but I don't want to be blindsided by this again. What are you going to do differently? Like put it back on him. I don't have to take all the responsibility, right? Scratch an alcoholic, find a codependent. I'm going to fix this. Here's what we're going to do. I'm going to do this budgeting. I'm going to track your finances. No, it's on him now. What are you willing to do? How are you willing to go to any lengths? What are those lengths look like? So I ask questions instead of playing the victim and you did this and you're going to do that.
Yeah, that's really helpful. And I have a follow-up question that came in from the live audience while you're talking about that, about this. This is from Sam, and Sam says, what do you actually do to set boundaries with family members and friends? And how do you know what is a healthy boundary?
Yeah, so that's a good one because I always thought boundaries are about this is how you're going to treat me, and if you're not going to treat me right, then I'm just going to cut you out, right? The cutoff culture that we live in, right? I don't think God asked me to just cut my mom out of my life. I think God has asked me, designed to give me the role of a daughter. But that doesn't mean that I don't block my mom when she shows up at my door at 5 a.m. and blows my phone up all day. The goal of the boundaries isn't to change someone else. Boundaries are about doing what I need to do for me to take care of me. So, for instance, there's a cutoff when I'm with my mom. There's only so much that I can take with God, where I'm hearing you're evil, you put me in an awful place, and I've got to really make sure that I'm not taking that stuff personally. I've got to be really connected to God before I go to my mom because I know she's going to touch those old wounds. But I know at the end of the hour, maybe I'm not going to be spiritual anymore. And when I'm losing my spiritual condition, that's when I need to go. That's my boundary for me because I don't want to unleash me on you. Boundaries are about doing what I need to do to take care of me so that I'm not a terror, as our book says, so that I'm not a tornado. But that doesn't mean the selfish self-centeredness gets a vote where I'm just going to cut my mom out of my life. God has assigned me the role of a daughter. She is difficult to deal with. She is very prickly. How do I find compassion where I don't make everything about me and I'm a victim, so I'm just not going to deal with her? Because that's the selfish self-centeredness. I'm so selfish and self-centered. I'll give her more power over my mind and my emotions that she's my higher power. That's why I get right-sized with God, so that I don't show up feeling that selfish self-centeredness, that I can show up within the realm of the spirit for a little while to do God's will. But it doesn't mean I have to do it for 3 hours or 15 minutes. I get to decide with God in that moment.
Mm. Yeah, thank you so much for going into that, Beth. And I think this next question from our live audience follows up on that a little bit, or at least goes into that reaction period. This is from Irving. Irving says, thank you so much for your share, Beth. I can relate to so much with it. Question: what does that gap between the reaction and the truth look like to you, that pause button? What do you actually do exactly then when you are about to react, when you feel that snow globe starting to shake up?
Yeah, the first thing I do is I do nothing. So that triangle, the ego's trilogy, or what I call the selfish bondage of self, fear, anger, or guilt. Whenever I'm about to react from fear, anger, or guilt, say nothing. Zip it. There's, great books you can read like Melody Beattie. It says, it takes about a half hour for our little snow globe of emotions to kind of calm down. Lots of people, Richard Rohr talks about, we have narcissistic emotions, right? Those things that I default to. My emotions today are a barometer of how far disconnected away I am from God, but they don't get a vote. We hear feelings aren't facts. Well, sometimes I was sad my mom didn't come to my wedding. That's a fact. I'm able to let that feeling land on me and do its worst, but I'm not able to, go sit on my couch for 24 hours and indulge in the self pity of that. So there's some differentiating I have to do. But when the snow globe is stirred up, zip it. I wait for the emotions to calm down, and then I get real clear with God, with the sponsor. I run these things by other people because the head takes 10% of the facts. So and so did this and writes 90% of the story that's not even written yet, And that's what my mind does. And I'm very aware of that. So I run it by other people and I'm calm and I'm able to respond with facts instead of reacting on emotions, which is never good.
Yeah, and the people pleaser in me, Beth, wants to say, yeah, but what if I'm in a place where the response is expected and maybe even needed in a quick manner? How do you deal with it in those situations where I'll just say, hey, my wife and I uh, get in an argument, or let me back up before that. I do something similar to what you shared about. She finds out that I did something that we hadn't talked about previously, and she comes to me and says, "Hey, tell me about this." And my snow globe gets shaken up, and I start getting defensive. But she wants a response right now. How do I then set that in place and zip it without causing more harm?
Yeah. So what I say to my husband is, I'm going to need some time right now. I actually tell my husband that my snow globe is a little stirred up. When that whole thing happened with the money thing, I was angry. I was afraid, but, I was still feeling some feelings of anger, and he came downstairs and he said, I don't know if it's a good time to approach you. And I said, right now, I just need to calm down a little bit because if I say something that's kinder and loving, I don't want to regret that, period. And it's real simple. That's my truth. That's why I say I state my truth kindly. My truth is good enough. Now, sometimes that's not good enough for him, right? He's an alcoholic too, wants to solve this and fix it right away. Now's not the time. I love you, but I want to let you know that I need time to calm down, period. I don't give a big, long thing. And I'm just really quiet. I've got a whole bunch of one liners that I use all the time.
Yeah, I love that. And one of those one-liners that you use, and that's a great, you're really good at making these segues happen, is where I trip is where my treasure is. Explain more
Mm.
about that. I've never heard that before. Tell me a little bit about the background of that and what that means to you.
Yeah, for me, it's like all those things where, my mind makes problems into a really big deal. And I end up coming out the backside going, oh my God, if I would have never have gone through that, I wouldn't have grown in my relationship with God, with my mom, right? I wouldn't have known that my mom was going to show up 6 months later after a hurtful, sad period of not being a mom at my wedding. I couldn't have told you that God was going to have her show up at my house and give me a gift so that I could have compassion. Now, it didn't mean that I still like my mom at that moment. I don't believe love is a feeling. I believe love is an action. It's a choice. It's a decision that I make. Right. But I'm not always going to feel loving towards her. And I was under the delusion and the fantasy thinking that love and forgiveness is a feeling. Love and forgiveness for me is a decision that I make in the moment on how I'm going to treat people and to not live under that delusion. But God says, you don't know. I'm only lighting your next footstep, Beth. You want to know the whole path to feel comfortable. And so I've learned that so many things that I go through in sobriety, because life is life on life's term. This drama called life, as our book says, it is dramatic. It is squirmy. It is uncomfortable. And I learned that when it's uncomfortable, that's how I learn that I can deal with the discomfort, that even though I don't like it, that I get God's flying the plane and I can find islands of peace, because I had to trip in order to find those treasures, that I don't deal well, that I'm addicted to comfort, that I'm addicted to people making me feel good, that I'm addicted to defaulting at these things. Without tripping, I would have never discovered these things.
Love that. Thank you for digging into that a little bit deeper and expounding on that. I really appreciate that. So, Beth, you mentioned early in your talk something about, hey, the God idea and being repulsed by it. And now as you speak, it's just God as a part of what I am and who I am. How has that evolution of that relationship looked over maybe your whole life, but especially over your recovery part of your life?
Yeah, I was raised in a home where there was a lot of God, 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 God. And, I felt like I lived with a whole bunch of hypocrites. So that was the first idea of separation and not really sure about the whole God concept. And then, early in my teenage years, my parents walked away from it. And then I really thought they were the biggest hypocrites the way they lived. And so, when I came into Alcoholics Anonymous, I heard God, 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 God. And I would sit there in the meetings rolling my eyes, and I wanted nothing to do with this God. And I didn't know that I had fantasy thinking about what a God should do, because I've been shooting all over the place, even with what God should do, right? Like the only time I prayed was when I was in the back of the cop car in a whole bunch of trouble. And when God didn't wave his magic wand, there is no God. All the bad stuff that happened to me as a kid, there is no God. God would never allow that. So my concept of God had to grow and become something other than what it was. But it took time and sobriety to figure out what that was going to look like. And it's still, our book says we cannot comprehend God. Quit trying, Beth. And so I began to just have a relationship in the morning by taking suggestions and directions. My first sponsor told me, get on your knees and pray. I'm like, that ain't happening. God's never done anything for me. And then I continued to drink. And then one day I got on my knees, and the job called and said, we want to fire you. And that was the first day I'd ever gotten on my knees and asked a God that I didn't believe in, didn't want, and didn't think I needed to keep me sober. I understand God looking backwards. I live life forwards, but I understand life backwards. I didn't understand that God was doing for me what I couldn't do for myself. I'm not supposed to be sitting here with you today. I was supposed to die on my dad's front porch, but the water quality checks by the lifeguards at the beautiful lake across the street from his house came back bad. So what ends up happening is I stopped breathing in front of my dad and got carted off to the hospital. Worst thing in the world when it happened. Now it's the most celebrated day of the year that I have in Alcoholics Anonymous, but I didn't know it at that time that was all God. I see that today because I'm clear-headed and I'm looking and seeking, and I don't always see God when I'm in it. It seems to be backwards. And that growth, the two most important words in our 11th step are sought and improved. Right? This is why in the morning I get up, I pray, I meditate. At night I do my 11 step inventory. This is why I come here and I talk to God about other people, because I'm not always feeling amazing, wonderful, and connected. But I do believe God exists, and I do believe that if I don't grow in that relationships, I will not survive the trials and low spots ahead, our book tells us. Right? So I can just go service, 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 service. That's going to fix me. And I see so many people getting so unbalanced in their life that it's just all about service, and they forget about the God piece. And then they go out and they drink and they die.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that evolution and so often the service, the unity service. I'm trying to remember I'm falling on my face with the triangle there, but no, if I just lean so much on one side of that triangle, I'm going to fall on my face. I'm going to go out and drink. And if I drink, to me, I'm going to die, So thank you so much for that, Beth. I've got one more question here. We've got time for maybe one or two more questions from our live audience. If the live audience has another question, please type it in the Q&A link. But Beth, you talked a lot about shifting the perception of being a victim from others to self. So I'm trying to verbalize this question in a way. How do you, when you are in a victim situation, you talked about the assault that happened in college, and you talked about your process of looking back at that and going, no, it wasn't my fault that this happened, but this is where I am. Talk to us a little bit about those victim situations and inventorying those in a healthy manner.
Yeah. So, I mean, first of all, I have to start taking responsibility for myself now, which is something that I'd never done before Alcoholics Anonymous, right? My feelings are my feelings, but I've got to figure out, right, which ones are fickle, because feelings are like the weather, right? And which ones are true. I'm sad that my mom's not coming to my wedding. I'm a little angry my husband went and spent the money. And the inventory is a big part on how I get clear on that, right? Because I know that I default to a victim. I know that's where I like to go. That's just where Beth defaults to. So I have that awareness of it, but sometimes I need to write inventory because it's like my character defects wear different colored shirts now, right? It's like 6 years, new level, new devil. Cunning, baffling, and powerful. These things show up in wearing different shirts that I can't see that it's the same character defect of playing the victim again. There's a perverse payoff in playing the victim. It's me spinning at the center of my own universe. Everything's all about, I used to call my sponsor for some type of problem and she'd start singing like the opera singer. Me, 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 me. Right? I've got to realize we're all given free will in this world. And we can watch the news and we can see a lot of that free will does damage, right? I look at my own experience and what I did, which is why I've had so many amends to make in the 9-step amends process. I had free will. I did damage that affects other people, right? But there's a perverse payoff in staying a victim. Complaining is making myself a victim. The ego loves keeping me separated from God, keeping myself at my own universe. If nobody will listen to me in my sad story, I could tell it to myself over and over and over again. And I'm disconnected from the present moment, which means I'm completely disconnected from God. And I'm definitely disconnected from you. The goal in Alcoholics Anonymous is to maintain conscious contact with God. There's three types of my relationships. There's my relationship with myself, my relationship with you, with others, and there's my relationship with God. But I normally don't realize that my relationship with God is off until my relationship with myself is off or my relationship with you is off. And normally that's in the victim thing. Because again, I like to just sit in my crappy little diaper because it's comfortable defaulting to where I want to. And what I'm learning in Alcoholics Anonymous is to not to shut myself off from the sunlight of the spirit. That I've got to realize that that's where I go to. And that doesn't make me bad. It makes me human, but I want to stay present to what ego does, which comes from a place of lack and limitation. And it's all about me. I need to prove I'm a somebody. You did me wrong. And I'll spend more time thinking about you and making you my higher power than going to the God, the one that has all power and that I often don't have power. But it's like somebody dumped a bag of garbage in my head. Would I let somebody do that? Would I let somebody rent space in my head when it's stinky and smelly? I go back to giving other people more power over my mind and my emotions than I have because I want power. And God says, quit trying. Let me be in charge. I got the plan. You ain't got it, Beth.
Oh, such good stuff. And you threw one more one-liner out there that I have to dig on. New level, new devil. Talk to us a little bit about that one-liner here.
Yeah. So when I came into Alcoholics Anonymous, wrote out my first step, it's like, yeah, I fear of what other people think of me. Yeah, I take things personally. Yeah, I'm judgmental. And then it's like, wow, by the time I get to 6 years, it's new stuff that seems to be uncovering. So we're always like, it feels like we're always pulling the onion. I would have never told you that I felt like I was not enough. I have an incredibly big ego. I'm coming at you. I'll tell you where you're wrong. Like it's like drinking through a fire hose some days with me. But underneath, the reason why I do that and the reason why I want people to be happy with me is because I'm really afraid that I'm not enough. Everything that has come down to in the last couple of years is that there's something wrong with me and that's where I'm defaulting to. But I couldn't have said that in my first couple of years. That's the beauty of knowing that today at a new level, that there's a new devil that tells me at work, oh, you're just not going to be successful at that. Somebody's going to be displeased with you when you do that project. Nothing I ever do is right for my mom. Underneath all that is something's wrong with me, and that's not the truth.
Yeah, and I love that. That goes right along with one of my favorite lines. God will constantly disclose more to you and to us. Um, and I'm grateful now. I used to hate it when God would say, "Hey, look at this right here. Look at this character defect that you were blind to all these years." I used to be like, "Oh, come on, give me a break." And now it's like, "Oh, okay." Now what do I need to do to address that? I love this. Thanks for the new level, new devil. Love that. Love that.
You got it.
Okay. So before we wrap up now, Beth, do you have any final words of wisdom that you'd like to share with us?
Final words of wisdom. Yeah, I would just say, just remember, for me, I can't fix me. I really thought I could. I've got to build and grow in a relationship with the power that isn't me. Keep writing the inventory and connecting to be present. It's as simple as that. Just being present is where I meet this God of my understanding. And thank you so much for having me.
And thank you so much, Beth. All right, we're going to do a closing reading, and then we'll get into a really cool prayer that Beth is going to close us out with. It's going to be really cool. I've never heard it before, so I'm excited for it. Big thanks, Beth, for a fantastic RECO12 weekly speaker meeting. And if we missed your question out there in the audience, or if you have more, please consider joining our WhatsApp community. Send an email to RECO12pod@gmail.com. That's RECO12pod@gmail.com. to join in the conversation. And if you haven't already rated and reviewed the podcast on Apple Podcasts, please consider doing so. It's a powerful way to work step 12 and get this message into the path of more people who may want to come trudge this happy road with us. Next Friday, we are scheduled to hear from another first-time RECO12 speaker, Joan, who will be speaking to us about the unique definition of the drug and sobriety for anorexics and bulimics anonymous. I'm excited to have a new to RECO12 fellowship represented. I love when other fellowships join in here. Stay tuned on the WhatsApp community and on our email list for more information on that. And if you aren't on that email list, please send an email to RECO12pod@gmail.com and ask to be included. We'll get you in there. Now let's launch off into the rest of our day with the prayer of the hurried that Beth will say for us.
All right, thank you. So this comes from the 12-step prayer book. So my sober sister gave this to me when I had my 1-year anniversary. Prayer for the hurried. Lord, slow me down. Ease the pounding of my heart by quieting my mind. Steady my hurried pace. Give me, in the confusion of my day, the calmness of the everlasting hills. Break the tension of my nerves and muscles. Help me to know the magical restoring power of sleep. Teach me to take minute vacations by slowing down, to look at a flower or a cloud, to chat with a friend, to pat a dog, to read a few lines from a good book. Remind me that the race is not always to the swift, that there is more to life than increasing speed. Let me look upward into the branches of the towering oak and know that it grew great and strong because it grew slowly and well. Lord, slow me down. Inspire me to send my roots deep into the soil of life's enduring values, that I may grow towards the stars of my great destiny.
Beautiful prayer. Thank you so much, Beth. Remember, everybody, there is one who has all power. That one is God. May you find God now. Keep coming back. Come all the way in, sit all the way down, stay. Let's trudge this road of happiness, destiny together. Work it. You are worth it.
I've seen stars fall from above. I've fallen in and out of love. I've been high and I've been low. Now I know I just can't do this on my own. I've seen a boy become a man. He got lost without a plan. He's so far away from home. Now I know that I just can't do this on my own. Your arms surrounding me. Your touch is grounding me. No longer searching for purpose all alone. 'Cause now I know that I just can't do this on my own. I'm looking for the words to say. You make the world a better place, and I can call that place my home. now I know that I just can't do this on my own. Your arms surrounding me, your touch is grounding me. No longer searching for purpose all alone, 'cause now I know that I just can't do this on my own. So let me see just what you need to set you free, so we can be. I saw stars fall from above. I fell in and out of love. I got high and I fell low, but now I know that I just can't do this on my own. No, I just can't do this on my own. I just can't do this on my own.